Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. In this episode, Chicago 13 shares his winding path graduating from Berkeley in 2006 and trying to make it big by building apps and living in the startup ecosystem in Silicon Valley. Listen to why it didn't work out, along with some words of warning, what the main turning point was, and why he ended up getting his JD and jumping into big law, only to leave 1 year later to join a middle market investment bank. Learn about the common associate struggles starting out in IB, why he was screamed at during a holiday party, and how he managed to overcome those obstacles to get promoted to VP. Enjoy. All right, Chicago 13, thanks so much for joining the Wall Street Oasis podcast.
Hey, thank you, Patrick. Good to join.
So it'd be awesome if you could just give the listeners a quick summary of your bio.
Sure, happy to do that. So I grew up on the West Coast. I went to school at UC Berkeley, spent some time out there in the early 2000s, and graduated when the economy was great. Chose kind of the completely different route than what was expected, and I went the startup route. Didn't follow my friends into corporate or go to med school like my parents wanted me to. So I did that for a little bit. Worked for a lot of various startups. It was a pretty exciting time to be in the Bay Area. It was when the App Store was just taking off. So people were creating all these kind of dorky little apps. I try to do the same. There are apps like, Message in a Bottle, and, there are the other ones where, it would give you times of when the surf would come in. So very uncool. Like the low tide and high tide, when that
cool.
would be.
Yeah.
So it's just an app. It's like basically a calendar. So we kind of messed around a lot with stupid stuff like that, but did that for a bit. The last startup that I worked at was a airline company, and I think I was hired to do kind of their back-end reservation system, and they kind of moved me over to a more project management role. So did that for a little bit, and then kind of a turning point was when I was sleeping in my car because I didn't want to bother my friends too much. I've been doing that for months, so living out of a car for about a week, and I was like, hey, I need to do something more stable. I remember parking into nice Palo Alto homes in the areas, and then kind of sleeping in my car, and then leaving right before the joggers would come out. So I did that. I was getting a stipend for like $500 a month at the startup, and then was promised all these great options, but I don't think that really materialized. So doing that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I took the LSAT. Surprisingly did well without much preparation. Then I went to law school. So did that, got a good scholarship, and then went in with the idea of doing IP law, because that kind of married my interest of
tech,
the legal protections and also technology. So did that for a bit in law school and focused on that. Kind of soon found out that wasn't for me, through coursework and through my internships, in the summertime. So I ended up going the corporate law route, really focused on M&A and corporate finance. And did that at a top 10 New York-based law firm. Did that for about a year. Really focused on M&A. Didn't like it too much. I felt like as a lawyer that I was the last to know anything on the deal. And when I would ask people or ask my partner, why did we make this decision? Why did we concede on this or that provision? The answer was always, hey, that's a business decision for business guys. And I was like, hey, I want to be a business guy. I want to understand what's going on. So I started looking at different opportunities in investment banking, made the switch in about a year. So I've been at my current bank. It's a middle market bank, really focused on technology and business services. I've been doing that for about 6 years now.
That's awesome.
Now it's like I started as associate, rose up to a VP.
Yes. Wait, you started when you went from law school to banking, you were able to transition as an associate, right? Like a first year associate, basically?
I was, yeah. And to be honest, it was a tough transition because
I'm sure.
I don't know. I'm trying to manage these analysts who know everything. They've been at the bank for 2-3 years, and I had never taken an accounting class before.
let's start earlier because I think there's some really interesting
Yeah.
stuff to unpack. Let's go back to Berkeley. So West Coast kid, you get into Berkeley, you're obviously pretty sharp because Berkeley's not easy to get into. And you are, what are you doing there? Like, oh, did you want to major in certain, your parents are pushing you to med school. So were you like pre-med to start?
Yeah, I was pre-med for a year. I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from a background of my families are all professionals. It's all they know. So anything entrepreneurial, anything in finance, they don't know what that is.
So
So
like what kind of professions? Like
when I told them,
medicine and lawyer, legal and
yeah, medicine and lawyers.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically medicine and lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair. And so
so that's all I knew.
when you told them I'm going to do startups because it's '06 when you're graduating and everything's super hot in Silicon Valley, what was the response?
Yeah, so that was it was they thought I was pretty dumb, and I kind of tend to agree. I think maybe for me, I didn't have the technical background. I just kind of picked it up. I picked up programming and just tried it out. I wanted to do something with my friends. And I think that was probably the wrong decision.
But tell me,
Actually, at the time,
let's unpack that because I think a lot of kids had that.
Yeah,
Maybe not so much now with everything going on. Everyone's looking for safety now with COVID. But tell me, let's
yeah.
unpack like that idea of in a frothy market, maybe not '06, but maybe like, even a year ago, people were maybe thinking, hey, startups are where it's at. Tell me like what went into the thought process. Maybe it wasn't much, but maybe it's just, hey, I want to work with my friends. I think we could make this work because we're smart guys or gals. And what happened? Like, what was the first attempt? And did you have any sort of cash flow coming in when you first graduated? Like, was there something leading up to that gave you confidence that you could do it?
Well, I had really bright friends, so it's kind of going off their ideas and kind of going off their technical experience. I think we really got caught up in the idea of the dream, basically, of we were seeing all these what we thought were dumb companies come up and just create amazing products that everyone started using, and we thought it was not bad ideas. It turned out to be great. I mean, I remember there was a guy called Justin TV, and he just recorded himself, playing video games, walking around.
Yeah.
It actually became Twitch. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
That
we thought if you did anything tech related, I thought, there's a chance of, making it big. And I certainly think that my friends had these skills and kind of the drive and kind of the vision to do that.
So where did you come in though? Were you the business? Were you supposed to be the business person? Or just...
I was supposed to be the business person. I got roped into coding part of it too, because if you can't sell your product, no one's buying it, then there's not much for you to do. So I got more into the development side of it.
So you graduated '06 in what, May or June? Mm-hmm. You guys finished classes, and then like
in May. Yeah.
And then like, how much do you have to your name? Are your parents still funding you? How do you convince them to actually pay your rent? Or are you just, because like at this point, it sounds like you're really just starting up with a couple friends. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. That's right. So, I mean, I had a couple savings just from working in the summertime. Mm-hmm. So I had thoughts about going to law school. So I worked at a law firm for, a year in the summertime before that. So had a bit of savings. Wasn't really expensive. I wasn't living expensively. I was living in like a one bedroom with like two other people. So
you had like what, $20,000 or something saved, something like that.
Yeah, about like 15,000.
15, yeah. So you can stretch that if you live really cheaply.
yeah, you can. And then I remember I had a bus pass. I bought like a bus sticker off a current student at Berkeley when I graduated.
Nice.
Did that to get around. So
very cool.
Yeah, it was interesting times.
So you were hustling. So okay, so you're starting one thing to the next. Did you ever have an idea that started kind of getting traction or any revenue from any of these ideas? And because it sounds like you didn't go to law school for 4 years.
Yeah, I didn't go to law school for 4 years. So
yeah, so you were trying for a while. Like you kept at it. So tell me like the ups, any sort of exciting kind of trends in there. It sounds like you eventually joined a slightly larger startup, the airline one, to kind of maybe try and get something more stable, but for some reason they were kind of not paying you or paying you really, really low. Can you tell me about that? And like can you tell me what to look out for kids that like, because you're obviously a sharp kid, but like, is it because you didn't have like any sort of skill set you could bring or point to? Like, why do you feel like they were able to do that and pay you so little? At a great financial crisis?
Yeah,
like
no. I think for me it was it sounded cool. I mean, that's kind of the simple answer. Probably not the best answer, but I think they found naive kids like me. I think everyone that I worked with was pretty bright. But I mean, they're just fresh grads or newly grads, and the opportunity to work on a private airline company was pretty cool. So I mean, I got roped in that way. We thought that we were building. I mean, they became something substantial. So I think in the end it did work out. But at the time when I was there, it was a lot of hurdles, or regulatory hurdles. And I think a kind of a warning sign for kids, maybe when they're choosing startup opportunities, is looking at the strength of the founder. I mean, we had a strong founder, but I mean, it was just him. I would tend to be, if I were to go back, I would look for people who, you know, have deeper teams, not just one guy, pretty much. And then, you know, one guy, you know, you want someone who lives and breathes this stuff. I think my boss was more of a lifestyle kind of guy. You kind of see him once in a while, drop in, you know, try to be the cool guy. But if you really want to succeed in startups, it's a difficult world because you're not generating revenue, you're burning through cash. You want someone who's obsessed with the product, with the vision, with their go-to-market strategy, everything. So I would say, you know, follow someone who's super passionate, not just someone who's doing this as a side gig or side passion.
I think that's great. Or maybe somebody who's had a few rounds of successful funding and are on the right trajectory, right? If you want to get
that too, absolutely.
Yeah, or super early, but they're willing to kind of not just say they're going to pay you, but like actually put something in writing and maybe actually give you options.
Well, I know I got the options, but like it was not much. Yeah, and then I mean they were upfront about payment, but I think, you know, when you're hungry and when you're a kid or when you're young, I think you just go for the riskiest thing. And I would caution, I guess, the listeners that don't always do that. Always protect yourself and you know, take your time in taking opportunities. Like, you don't have to rush into the first thing that you find. I made that mistake a lot. So
because you'd get excited by whatever company you're looking at and then just jump, basically. And so how many different companies did you work for? I know that airline one was the last one, the private airline, but was there like 5 before? Was it you for the first couple of years with your buddies trying to make it work? Like, what was the kind of trajectory of that?
Yeah, so it was, I worked at it was mostly groups of my friends initially. And then
the reason I'm asking this is because I really kind of want to break down like the ebbs and flows. Like, was it like obvious that there was a failure? Was like there was middling success somewhere and you guys were like, then chase that for a year? You know what I mean? Like, was it, you know what I mean? That type of detail would be.
There was some success early on where there was interest, you know, with one of our apps. So we chased that. That became nothing in the end. And then we tried again. So that took about 2.5 years or so. And then I was running out of money, obviously. So I took a lot of temp jobs. So that kind of that delayed kind of my switch over to law too.
At that point, when you were sleeping in your car in Palo Alto and driving kind of just because you had been sleeping on couches for your friends' places for a while. And you didn't want to bother them. What's going through your head there? Are your parents saying, "I told you so" at any point? Like, are they pushing you still to kind of consider law school? What was the whole dynamic?
Yeah, no, my parents are pretty cool. My parents are East Asian, so they're from a background of, you know, education is everything, but surprisingly, my parents are pretty cool. And they were supportive. I think they thought that I'd figure it out in the end.
And you did.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
One regret I have though is I had I don't know how I got this offer, but straight out of college, I got an offer to go to a large hedge fund.
Wow.
You know, at the time it was one of the largest hedge funds in the world, and I didn't even know what a hedge fund was, but I somehow got the opportunity, and I turned it down to create like a surfing app. So I always feel like potentially maybe that was not the right decision.
I love it.
Then looking back at my kind of how my career has progressed, you know, investment banking, you know, when you join, obviously, as you guys all know, if you join as an associate and move on up, those opportunities on the buy side is limited. So if that was something I wanted to pursue, it wouldn't be open to me today, I feel, or it'd be a lot harder.
It's harder. Yeah. I mean, it's still possible, but it's hard. So tell me a little bit about, that kind of that final straw that broke your back, sleep, you realized like, this is not sustainable. I'm getting like these tiny stipends, working these temp jobs, sleeping in my car, moving my car. At that point, you're just like, I just got to take the L. I just got to go figure something out. That was just kind of like, did it come to you like one day, or you're like, I just had enough? Like
I think when you're young, like you get to a certain point where like you start comparing yourself to your friends. You do less of that in your 30s, but when you're in your early to mid 20s, you're like, am I getting behind in life? And I didn't know. I just remember thinking, I just want to go to Safeway. It's a grocery store chain on the West Coast, and I just don't want to have to worry about buying groceries. I remember that was a huge thought that I had, and I didn't want to ask my parents for money because they paid for my college. So I felt like they did enough for me. I didn't want to ask for more. So I just wanted to be
self-sufficient.
I wanted to be self-sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was my big thing coming out of college. I just didn't want to like rely, because my parents paid for my college. So I didn't want to rely anymore. I was like, that's enough. That was expensive,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I get it. So, okay. So you take the LSAT, you do well, you get into a great law school with some aid, it sounds like, which is awesome. Package. Sure. And then you end up going, you were kind of interested in IP. You end up going kind of just the big law, corporate law route with MFA and Corp Fin. And so did you do a summer associate role like with that same firm like that summer, or one of the summers during
so no, I did not. So I actually I did my summer associate at a different kind of big law firm that was more litigation focused.
Okay, so tell me like what your thought process was. Was finance ever even on the radar ever? You probably wouldn't be at law school. It was, but
yeah,
was it ever on the radar?
It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't until I did that summer internship between my second and third year. So it was a litigation focused big law shop, but I did a rotation program across restructuring, corporate, IP. So they put me through the different rotations.
Cool.
And I thought I would like IP a lot, and I didn't like it at all.
Interesting. And you're a little more, you found restructuring and the other side more interesting?
Yeah, definitely. It was much more interesting. I felt like, I just felt like it was more teamwork oriented, where litigation is still adversarial. Like you play these little games like,
I feel like restructuring is pretty adversarial. I feel like restructuring. I mean, when I was in restructuring at Rothschild for a couple of years, and I remember those meetings and those negotiations. They were pretty
stressful.
They got pretty stressful and pretty heated. I mean, you're talking about like hundreds of millions of dollars in negotiating right there and back and forth, and it took years to get to Chapter 11. But
no one's happy, in those type of discussions.
No one's happy. Everyone's losing. Oh, the bank's happy, and the lawyers tend to be happy, right? Because they're making bank. But tell me about. So it kind of was a little bit on the radar, and then once you accepted kind of this big law firm and you started working, at what point was it like within the first 3 months you're like, this is not going to work out? And was it hours? Was it pay? What was and pay's pretty good for at the top firms. You're making like a good $300K, right, a year. So this is the first time you're making like bank.
No, your starting salary then was in big law was 160. It's today. It's
so it's like 200. Okay, yeah, I'm thinking more like now, but isn't it like with everything it's like 230, 240?
I think now it may be.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it may be.
Okay, so back then. Okay, so your salary is similar to like the banking associate, but the bonus is nowhere near it.
No, there's like the bonus. I think my first year was like 10 grand.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think all in it was like 170, and now it's like low 200s for kids out of law school.
Okay, so that makes sense. So, but tell me about your hours there. Just brutal, right?
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, up and down, but I mean, there's inconsistent and it's I think it's similar to banking.
Yeah.
But your role is if I were to compare it to banking, your role is more similar day to day. You do kind of the same thing over and over again. Whereas in banking, it's pretty dynamic depending on what phase of the process you're in. If you're doing M&A,
fair.
Or if you're doing an equity offering or whatever.
So you're kind of there for how long before you're thinking, I got to get out of here?
Yeah, I think within the first 3-4 months. So not very long. And usually they try to take it pretty easy on you to kind of kind of get you to buy into the firm culture and all that. But I was learning a lot, but at the same time, I wanted to learn faster. I mean, I was looking at the bankers on the other side of the deal, and they seemed to know more about what was going on. They were close to the client. They were advising the client from start to finish. Whereas I felt like as an attorney, we were brought in as a hired gun at the very end, to like paper up decisions that have already been made. So I didn't feel involved in the decision-making process. And that was not, I don't know, for some reason that kind of didn't sit with me the right way. And I really wanted to think about how I was spending my time professionally. I wanted to be kind of the most value additive for my client.
That's fair. Okay. So you kind of had this epiphany, okay, this is not the right place. So I want to go be those guys. I want to be in banking. So how the hell did you make that transition? Because it's super hard. You just spent 3 years getting a JD.
Yeah.
Before that, you just have startup experience. And then you're now at a big law firm. At least you're at a good firm. So there's some,
that helped a lot.
There's some respect there. They're like, okay, well, this guy's smart. But tell me how you went about just the entire networking process. Like, what story was it? That story you just told me? Was it kind of the similar thing? Like, I want to be the one to understand this. Is that kind of what you told them?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, basically. And the hardest part for me, I think the story was easy to tell. I think they believe that there are qualities that carry over from law to banking, like attention to detail, and you're hardworking. They know you're going to grind, so they don't have any concerns there. I think the burnout's actually higher in law, so they like that fact too. So, and the comp is higher. So those are all positive aspects.
The comp is higher in what sense? The comp is higher at the big law firm than at like a middle market?
No, on investment banking.
Yeah. But so meaning like burnout is, okay. I get what you're saying. Okay. So
you're coming from a worse place in bankers' minds, coming from big law. So I think they understand you're capable and you can put up with a lot. So that's what I'm trying to say.
So why would they hire you and not just some kid out of MBA? And how did you convince them to do that?
Yeah, no, that was hard because I don't have the hardest part for me was the technicals, because I didn't take a finance class. I didn't take accounting when I was in college or in law school.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of me just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, using services like Wall Street Oasis, and like using that type of service where you're trying to get coaching for interviews. So I booked a couple of sessions through a competitor of yours, and got help that way, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, that's big. Getting reps is like huge, especially if you don't have that technical background. So you're kind of studying up on your technicals, your accounting. You doing any like financial modeling training too?
I did, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I signed up for like Train the Street.
Yeah.
Got old guides from my business school friends. Like they would send me their old Train the Street materials and looked over that. Yeah. Looked at a lot of YouTube videos, accounting for dummies even.
Did that help? Yeah. Did you feel like it helped you become a little more dangerous in the interviews?
I mean, I apparently after the fact, they thought my technicals were superb, and I was blown away by that comment because I thought I had barely squeaked through. I knew just enough to like squeak by, and if they were to ask a level of questions next level deeper, I would have totally failed. So tell me a little bit
about that, like that process. So how many like, it sounded like you were networking and talking with a lot of people. So that was a good start. Like just coffee chats and stuff. And how did you find time given all, you just sneaking out for lunch and stuff with bankers?
Yeah, it was mostly on the phone. And then, I was in New York at the time, so that makes it easier because, they're all in Midtown, or, they're all concentrated in one area.
Yep.
And I just started with my friend group first, and then had friends of friends connect me. And then just went through that multiple times.
And then how long did it take for you to like start getting interviews?
So I think I would say within a month and a half or so, I started getting interviews after that. But pretty fast, yeah. And then once you get an interview, it moves so fast.
It does.
So you have no time to prepare.
Was it one of the first places you interviewed at? Is where you ended up?
No, it was actually one of the last. I had trouble getting an offer.
So tell me how many places. Yeah, tell me that doesn't surprise. I was going to be shocked if you like with the first place you talk with. No, how many places did you strike out with before you kind of got that offer?
I would say, I don't know. I interviewed at so many places. I feel like maybe over 10.
10, yeah. Wow.
And
Did you start feeling?
And it was all sides. It was like bulge brackets, middle market. It was boutique, is everything that I could just get my rep on. Like even though like it was a place I knew I didn't want to work at, I'd still go for that interview because it was practice.
Yeah. And so did you feel like you got a lot better, obviously, as you went along, but in the tech, you got more confident with the technicals, all that stuff. Your story got tightened up. Did you feel like at any point, like, this is not going to happen? Like nobody makes this jump? Or did you just feel like I'm going to
No,
make it happen
I was
eventually?
pretty, yeah, no, I thought I would get, I knew I would get something, but I just didn't know how good of an opportunity to be. So
Yeah.
I had doubts about that. Yeah.
Okay. So you finally kind of get through some final round at this middle market bank you're at now, and things go well. You get the offer, and I assume it's something like, 125 base, but the bonus opportunity is just massive, right? And was it
Yeah.
specifically for like M&A group, or how?
No, not specifically for M&A, but kind of M&A, more M&A focused. I was in a industry group,
Have you heard of any other
technology.
associates, legal associates, kind of jumping and making a similar move to you?
I'm seeing more of it now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm seeing more of people from my network reach out to me who are lawyers who want to make the jump. But this is 6, 7 years ago or so,
It's pretty rare.
I saw one or two examples, but not too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started as an associate. Tell me what the transition was like. You said you initially mentioned it was really hard, but tell me why.
Yeah, it was hard
Yeah.
because you have a lot of self-doubt when you start because you feel like you're not. I felt like I wasn't trained for any of this.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like everyone else had the technical training, and these are all things you can pick up. But when you first join, you have these doubts, and you see the analysts you're supposed to be managing know so much more than you. Like they'll just run circles around you.
Imposter syndrome or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
Where you're
a
like,
little bit. Yeah,
you're just like,
yeah,
I don't know. I can't do that. Like, I think that's super common even for MBAs for the analysts to run circles. So you shouldn't feel bad. But yeah, you coming from the
for sure.
legal background, it's
It,
tough.
and I see that from MBA people, MBA folks who just join. It's hard, I guess, when you go in without that analyst training,
Mm-hmm.
because those analysts are, just the reps alone just make them so good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to realize, they don't have always the maturity or the professionalism, and they are not good at project management. Like, you have to understand that you have a different role than they do.
Yep.
So you don't have to be good at everything. You've got to find something you're good at, and then have the rest of the team complement you. So that's kind of how I went through it. For myself, it was difficult because I didn't understand all the technicals. It took me about, I think, a good 6 months for me to
Mm-hmm.
understand all that kind of intuitive detail.
Yep.
So, how to read a financial statement, even as basic as that, I was starting from score zero. So that took a little bit of time to ramp up, for sure.
Sounds like me coming out of a liberal arts background, going into my analyst program. It was brutal. The first 6 months were brutal. Man, that training does not get you ready. Anyways, so it doesn't. You just need the reps, right? You need the reps. You need to spend the 50 to 100 hours a week in Excel and PowerPoint doing it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone can learn it, but it just takes time.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're kind of going through the associate, after that 6 months, things start getting kind of easier. You get more confidence. Tell me how things progress with the promo to VP, and how long that took, what that was like in terms of your superiors telling you, hey, you're doing a great job, or was there any time you felt like I'm going to lose my job?
Yeah, I think that first year I thought I was gonna lose my job all the time, because the hours are brutal. There's no feedback really. You have to kind of seek it out in investment banking.
Yeah.
No one's gonna tell you if you're doing a good job or a bad job. Well, I guess they'll tell you if you're doing a good job, but you really don't know if you're doing a bad job until review time.
Yeah.
And
tell me about your first review. What is that? 6 months in? Or earlier?
Yeah, I guess the mid-year. They don't really tell you anything. You're mid-year, and then at the end of the year, they're like, "Well, you could have done this and this and this." It's a little unfair, and this is why we're gonna dock your comp this much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was just happy to survive that first year.
Do you mind sharing
around I think my feedback.
Do you mind sharing around
sure.
where your comp was, just to give the listeners an idea?
Yeah, I think my all-in. Back then, I think my comp was I want to say it was 125 base,
mm-hmm.
and then I think my bonus was around another 100 to 125. So I got about 225 to 250, I believe, around there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So a little bit more than I was getting paid at the law firm, but not substantially more.
And were you working longer hours?
I think I was working longer hours at the
probably because you're drinking. Probably in the first 6 months, especially, you're like, "What the hell am I doing?"
Yeah, because I'm inefficient and it takes us longer.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the big reason why.
Okay.
So I think if you're probably better than I was, and it probably would have been more manageable.
Sure. Okay. So you do pretty well actually for that first year. So they probably had some decent things to say after that, after year one, like you're getting better.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that second and third year, was it just big pay raises because you eventually got promoted? Was it like 3 years and then the promo?
Yeah, it was I guess about 3.5 years or so before the promotion.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just steady increases up. And I think it's just a matter of, you have to understand getting a promotion is also very political. So in the very beginning, I was working with the same people over and over again, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to the rest of the firm. And I think that kind of hindered my progression, or like people didn't know who I was, even though I was there for a while.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to get promoted, I think you have to, have that into consideration. You got to talk to your staffer and try to get on, a broader type of deal so that you're known across the firm and you're trusted, because that goes a long way.
And so like that means like getting into M&A, if M&A is hot, that type of stuff, getting on some of those basically. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. Or different verticals too, if you can get into it, within your broader group.
Got it. That makes sense. So would you say that's true if, like, let's say you're in a certain team in a certain silo, and that's like the most respected team of the bank, and you guys are just crushing it with big deals? I mean, then you're probably going to have a fast track, right? Or no?
I think so. Yeah. Well, maybe that's probably true. That's probably the case for a bulge bracket. I think I'm coming from a middle market bank where we're not as siloed. We're more kind of free agent.
Yeah. And you were still getting siloed in that middle market. So it was almost like you weren't getting exposure, even though it's not even a huge bank, but you still weren't getting that kind of exposure. And so it was almost more important to be a generalist there and get broad exposure.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, there was no one place that was as super dominant where like you could ride it up all the way.
Well, my bank, especially just has very broad groupings. It's got, like a technology group is like super broad.
Yeah.
So it's, every vertical you can think of is part of that. So it's working with more than one MD basically.
Got it. Okay.
It's kind of exposure you want to get. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. So tell me about like so you said the pay went up. Eventually you're making like 400 or 500, whatever, as a VP. But tell me about just like how things shifted and changed with your role. Obviously you start just managing more and like more hands off from the MDs. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So there's more direct communication with the MDs. You're basically their right-hand execution support. So everything's filtered through you, and it's your job to not just crank anymore, it's to actually put thought behind either the marketing materials, the analysis, whatever it may be.
Was that hard for you, or that was easier transition for you, I think?
I liked it more because you have time to actually think.
It's a little more conceptual.
I feel like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then the details, the analysts and associates, had the first pass at figuring that out, and your level of thinking is devoted more to kind of structural things, like the more important concepts that you're trying to get across.
Can you talk to me about that? Like, is it like the way the deal's structured? You mean like in terms of like finding?
Oh no. I mean like an analysis structure, like how you want to lay out a model.
Got it.
This is how you want to structure it.
Got it.
It's more your time is more spent on kind of
framing,
thinking of ways to make it more intuitive and framing it for buyers to understand.
Fair.
More detail oriented.
Fair. Okay, so you're doing a lot of sell side stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of sell sides.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
More and more buy sides, but predominantly sell side.
Got it. Okay, and then I'm trying to think what else. Anything else you'd want to share, like in terms of your progression or the things to watch out for? Because you mentioned something about talking to your staffer to try and get on that broader thing. How do you like navigate those kind of what can be kind of touchy and political conversations? Did you feel comfortable doing that, or did you do it respectfully? How did you approach it?
Yeah, so I'm not a political person at all. I don't like to play the game where you try to support someone who's powerful behind the firm, try to move up. I try to do it my own way and hope people realized, and if they didn't, then so be it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I'm the best person to get advice from on that front. But I think if you're genuine and you put in the hard work and you try, I mean, that's all you can really do, and people will notice it eventually.
Yeah.
And just be a team player. I know people get really stressed out in banking, but really, like, it's just money moving around. And if you take a step back, no one's going to die. And it seems like it's going to end the world, but people get over it. So even if you make a mistake, don't kill yourself over it. Move on. Someone's being a jerk, then whatever, screw them, just move on.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things is you got to have a thick skin to survive in any type of role in finance, because it's a very harsh world.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing's personal. I think that's something that you have to realize, and
Did you
treat your team members with respect. Yeah, no matter who they are.
When you say that, like, are you saying that because like there were several times when like there was super high pressure stakes on you as an associate or VP, whatever, and like you got screamed at by the client or by the MD or whatever, and everyone was stressed out?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
Can you share, like, you don't have to give the specifics, but like, can you give me an example? Like there was a busted number in the model and you guys gave a presentation to a client. Is there a story you could share?
Yeah, for sure. So I remember we had a Christmas party for our office, and then, it's a happy time. Then I get this call from my VP at the time,
mm-hmm.
and we're working with a pretty growth-oriented client. So typically a smaller deal than we're used to. So their financials are not very strong, and we have to rely on them to get the support for the data to build a model. And we're trying to go out to buyers, I think, that next week or so, and we're building out this model. And the numbers don't tie, nothing makes sense. We can't explain to the VP, why this isn't working. And I remember it was like, I had like a couple beers, was feeling pretty good, and then I'm on the phone getting yelled at by my VP. And it was not a fun experience. And that was not just it happened a couple of times, actually, not just on that deal, but other deals.
Was that
too.
in your first 6 months where you were like panicked because like
Yeah.
And that's normal though,
sure.
like because you didn't have the modeling skills yet, right? And
I think I didn't have the modeling skills, and also you defer a lot to your client, like the CFO at the company.
Yeah.
And you just take their word for the support, and if you take a step back at it, it doesn't make sense. So I had a hard time kind of challenging my client, because I felt like they know better than I do, but that's part of your role. Even though you're a kid, or you feel like a kid, and they're like a grizzled veteran, you gotta question their assumptions.
Like, especially when it doesn't make sense. You should be able to step back and be like, well, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? How does this tie? That kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much, for sure.
That's
it's
awesome.
important to make things tie.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, that was unfortunately a short-lived good time at the Christmas party, but hopefully, I think everyone goes through that. I remember in my analyst days, I had some really stressful. The first 6 months, it was the worst. I had a guy who was my associate who had just come from HBS, similar kind of no banking background. I'm clueless because I'm coming from liberal arts. He's clueless because he has no background. And it was just like, he's like, I'm going to let you handle the model. I'm like, okay, but I have no clue what I'm doing. He's like, so go ahead and build. I'm like, I really have no clue. Like, I don't know what to do. And so I think it was kind of like blind leading blind. It was bad. Eventually what ended up happening is the VP eventually just took me and just basically showed me and mentored me. And he ended up doing a couple other deals, and then he ended up getting fired 6 months later. Cause I think he was very much like, didn't really want to put in, he wasn't exactly a team player, was checking out early. Like this guy is, it's not going well. And I was working 90, 100 hours. And so like people at least recognize that you're trying. You eventually get it. So anyways, man,
it feels like you'll never end, but you get it. Yeah.
I appreciate you being so candid and sharing all this. Anything else you want to end the pod with? Any kind of words of wisdom? I think you've already shared a lot, but anything else that before we call it?
Yeah, I think I probably said this before, but just be nice to people. Like if you're an analyst, be nice to your associate who's going out of the MBA program, who's trying to add value by making you do things what you think is not additive. Like, still just try to take their advice and try to learn from them. Don't I guess discredit anybody that you work with, especially your team member, because we're all in this together. We're all trying to do the best we can. So try to come at it from that perspective. And I think your experience will be better if you do that, if you can keep that in mind.
I love it. Great. Go teamwork. All right, man. Well, thanks so much. And we'll be in touch. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. Until next time.